Today we're driving the all-new 2024 BMW 530i. This is the $70,000 5 Series with a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo. It's all-wheel drive. We've driven the i5, the M50, and the xDrive 40. I would like to see how this compares. So we'll give you guys some first impressions on this 530i. This has the B48 2-liter turbo. It makes 255 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. That engine has made it to an 8-speed automatic transmission. And for the price, it's a little bit underwhelming. It's very efficient though. We get a highway cruising range of up to about 550 miles out of this 15.9 gallon fuel tank. It's rated for 35 miles a gallon on the highway, 27 miles a gallon in the city. And for its 4,100 pound curb weight, that's pretty impressive. This 530i is painted in Cape York green, which I think is a pretty cool color. We have 21-inch wheels on here with what are, in my opinion, barely roadworthy sidewall. 245/35 R21s in the front and 275/30 R21s in the rear. These won't last very long on Michigan potholed roads, or I would say in any city with potholes. The sidewalls are just too thin. Thankfully, BMW has supplied us with a spare tire in the back. However, this is what it looks like. You would think there'd be a cover for this. If this is the solution that BMW gives customers for a spare tire in their 5 Series, I would be disappointed. But at least they offer it. That said, doesn't quite look finished. Otherwise, trunk space is about what you'd expect. You can fold down the rear seats individually, which is very nice. You've got a power tailgate. I like powered tailgates in sedans. Some people seem to have a vendetta against them. I think it's really nice to be able to pop the tailgate from the front seat if a passenger needs to get something out of the back, and then you can lower it so that you don't have to get out and do it, or they don't have to do it. We've got these funky door handles that we've seen in a lot of other BMWs. They're kind of hard to hold on to, but you do get used to them. The only problem is in the ice and snow, if you park this outside, they can get stuck very easily. On the inside, we have some very familiar looking design language, very similar to the BMW iX. It's actually quite a nice place to be inside this 530i. Materials are very soft. Everything has a nice feel to it. Lots of haptic buttons down here. Lots of gloss black actually. A lot of touch screens. This is a very involved infotainment experience. BMW wants to make sure that if you spend all day at work looking at screens, you're going to also look at some screens on your way home. And I think that's been the main focus here with this new 530i, is just bringing it up to date in the latest of screen technology. I've been calling it the ultimate screen machine. Interior materials, space in the back seat, it's all very nice. I have plenty of headroom. I'm 5'10". This is my driving position. We have USB-C ports, no rear climate controls, but we get vents, an armrest, and just a good amount of headroom with this panoramic sunroof. It all looks very nice. We also get a Bowers & Wilkins sound system. You may have noticed that the new BMW 5 Series is a little bit taller. Proportions are looking slightly more awkward than they have in the past. It's looking less sedan-like and more crossover-like. Well, that's to make room for the battery pack in the i5. So this is a taller sedan now, and you sit a little bit higher. You almost feel like you're in a crossover in this. It kind of shrinks the perceived size of this proportionally, even though this is still a big, large sedan. It looks a little bit shorter and squatter because it is taller. I'm not completely sold on the design language yet, but I don't think it's terribly offensive. It should look pretty good in 540i and M5 forms once those are released. I like the taillights. This is still definitely recognizable as a BMW 5 Series. Let's take a look under the hood at this 2-liter turbocharged B48. Again, 255 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. A slight bump from the previous generation. Very fuel efficient, 30 miles to the gallon combined. It's smooth, it's quiet, and it's assisted by a 48-volt mild hybrid system, which gives you slightly better fuel economy in the city, as well as a bit of torque fill. Auto stop start is completely seamless. in this BMW 530i, and you can hear at idle, it is very, very quiet. Usually I'm having to shout when I pop the hood open in any modern car. That's not the case here. All right, let's hop inside, walk around the front seat a little bit, and we'll take this for a drive and give you guys some driving impressions. So, we can joke all day long about how this costs $70,000 for a turbocharged four-cylinder, but the fact of the matter is this starts at around 61 grand with destination. So you get a few options on this, and you're pretty close to $70,000. Chances are, no one's going to go out and pay $70,000 for this. They're going to lease it for a couple years and then get into whatever comes next. So, at that price point, how does this feel as a luxury sedan? I've got to say, everything in the interior, all of your interaction points, the touch points, the leather, the materials, they all feel very nice. One of my favorite things about the new BMW iX is just how the turn signal felt. And we get the same turn signal in this BMW 530i. It might actually encourage BMW owners to use their turn signal because it's just so satisfying. If you don't use your turn signal, you're missing out. We've got haptic buttons here on the steering wheel, down here for our iDrive controller. We've got this little nub for a shifter, and then just screens everywhere. This is iDrive 8.5. It's been updated to supposedly be a little bit more user-friendly than iDrive 8.0. We have a climate control screen. Chances are you're mostly just going to be putting things in auto, selecting your auto fan speed setting of choice, and then changing your temperature from there while you're in CarPlay or Android Auto. And that's easy enough to do. I will give BMW props. This is one of the most responsive infotainment systems I've used in any modern car. Heated steering wheel and heated seat operation is pretty straightforward, just right there on the screen, and they do a very nice job of warming your bum, your back, and your hands. We've got this cool M Sport steering wheel. This has the M Sport driver's package. So I like these kind of cutouts in here. That's pretty neat. Paddle shifters behind the wheel, a boost mode. We'll try that out to see if it does anything on the road. Fully digital gauge cluster with lots of different layouts and content and settings. We're just going to leave it on this mode right there. CarPlay was pretty tricky to get connected earlier today. I finally got it, but it took about 15 minutes of struggling back and forth to get it to work. So not sure if that's this car in particular. I've only been driving this 5 Series today, so I'll let you guys know at the end of the week how the integration of everything has worked so far. Otherwise, this infotainment seems to be pretty familiar, pretty similar to what we've got on iDrive 8.0. They've moved some things around. You still have this huge mess of apps. But once you get everything set up, I imagine this would be a more familiar place and an easier thing to use. You can use BMW Assistant for some functions. She works about 65% of the time, and the rest of the time it's incredibly distracting because it recognizes what you say, it just asks you to repeat it, or it doesn't really translate to any actual functions. So 65% of the time, every time, BMW Assistant works. Head-up display adjustment.
Could you repeat that?
Could you repeat that? So that's kind of the story of my experience with BMW Assistant.
Good morning.
Yes, and then you have to cancel her and press buttons to get her to go away. This iDrive controller, as a scroll wheel, it's great, really easy to use. We've got a slightly different button configuration here from what you may be familiar with in your older BMWs. So if you have another BMW in the driveway, you're gonna have to relearn this. This is similar to what we saw in the iX. I'm not a big fan of it. I think the button configuration is kind of a bit off, but you will get used to it. We have quick access buttons here, or haptic icons for driving assistance. This does not have adaptive cruise control, even though it says it on the Monroney. It's just regular cruise control. For $70,000 or even for $60,000 in a car with this involving of an infotainment system, it should be illegal to not have some very impressive driving assistance tech. There you go. Those are my thoughts on that. Some storage right here in the center console. We've got some My modes here. We can choose between personal, sport, efficient, expressive, relax, and digital art. sport mode. Might be interesting. We can activate traction control off. That's the first time I've ever seen that in the infotainment. I think this is the only way to do it, is in sport mode. There we go. Nice. We'll start off in personal and ramp things up from there. One more note on this iDrive controller. When you're navigating through this infotainment system, and let's say maybe you don't want to use it as a touchscreen, you're sat back, you're relaxed, you want to kind of choose and switch between different screens, there's a little bit too much resistance here when you're moving up and down into these sections. It's just a bit tricky to use. I wish BMW would adjust that slightly. Otherwise, we have our little shifter here with a very nice high-resolution reverse camera, forward-facing camera. We've got our parking brake, which is also putting the vehicle in park. There is no park button, that's it. Auto hold, engine start stop. There's no way to turn off engine stop start in this car. It just defaults to on. And honestly, I think that's fine, because with the 48-volt mild hybrid system, it's so seamless, it's so quick that by the time you have your foot off the brake and onto the throttle pedal, the engine's up and ready to go. And there's really no delay in setting off. Right here we have these airflow adjusters. You can change the direction of them right there. At least we get physical dials for that, which is nice. You don't have to go in the infotainment to do that. We've got a glove box button. Oh, here's the Monroney. $60,200 starting MSRP, $70,745 as tested. Bowers & Wilkins is $950. Sky Lounge Roof is $600. Nice option there. Premium package is $2,550. M Sport package is $3,000. That includes the 21-inch wheels, which do not really help with ride quality and NVH in this 5 Series. Here's the key. This looks pretty nice. Kind of big in your pocket, but it looks cool and feels like a high-quality key. As you may have been able to tell, I'm a little bit mixed on this new 5 Series. I think all the tech in this car is initially very frustrating to live with, because it's just not intuitive. I think good interior design has both form and function, and we're lacking some function here in exchange for form, and I don't think that's a good thing. All right, enough blabbing. Let's go for a drive and see how this BMW 5 Series is on the road. Does it redeem itself when you're behind the wheel? Well, first thing is, on these 21-inch wheels at lower speeds, it's on the stiff side. For a vehicle that wants to be luxurious and premium, it's a little bit firm. Very loud over potholes on these 21-inch wheels with barely any sidewall. A lot of NVH coming into the cabin. The powertrain is very smooth, very quiet. I can barely hear that this is a 4-cylinder most of the time. Steering is incredibly light. This has a variable ratio steering rack, and you wouldn't really know it except for the fact that it's very quick to turn at low speeds in parking lots. I actually really like the steering in this car. There is no feedback or feel from it whatsoever, but it just has a very nice, unique feel to it. It makes the car feel a little bit lighter, a little bit more nimble. It's a pleasure to use this wheel, and I really like the steering control weight. This 8-speed auto is tuned just about perfectly with this B48 turbocharged 4-cylinder. We get paddle shifters behind the wheel. Let's go into sport mode. There we are. Activate. DSC off in sport mode. All right. We'll shift into sport transmission mode. $255 horsepower definitely feels like a bit underrated of a number. This does 60 miles an hour in about 5.5 seconds. So it's reasonably quick. Really pleasing screen and digital art aesthetics in this 530i. I love the graphics, I love the design, I love the ambient lighting here. The integration of this stuff right here looks really cool. Let's do a little launch here. Really smooth, seamless shifts. Paddle shifters are responsive. Pretty good front end too. A little bit of body roll at the limit, but good traction from these tires. Now they're starting to complain. Lots of mechanical grip from this chassis. We don't really need to be in sport mode. It can hustle, it can handle itself on a back road. Is it exciting to drive? It handles well. The engine, for what this car is, I think is a bit underwhelming. I would hold out for the 540i. If you care about that sort of thing. If you don't care about what powertrain is in your BMW and you just want a BMW that's efficient, that's comfortable, that's modern, this is your answer. This is it. I will say, I think the integration of all this tech is better suited to the EV i5. Like I said earlier, we just have regular cruise control, no adaptive system. So if you need to take your eyes off the road for a couple seconds in this, you're just going to crash into the car in front of you. BMW has a pretty good driving assistance system in this, but it's an optional extra. I think that should come standard in a car that costs at least $60,000. For the most part, the interior feels pretty well bolted together. No shakes, no rattles. The seats are comfortable. They're a little bit softer than BMW's seats have been recently, and I like that. CarPlay, super quick, super responsive. This iDrive system is just best used as a touchscreen, and it is placed pretty well in front of you so that you can use it as a touchscreen. We get a head-up display. You should be able to change that and adjust that with the BMW Assistant, but I got it to work once. The rest of the time I just had to go through about 8 menus to adjust it. I love the turn signals in this car. The turn signals and the steering are my favorite things about the new BMW 5 Series. Why is that my takeaway from driving this car right now? In my opinion, the tech is cool at first, it's impressive, it looks good, but if I'm being honest, it just gets in the way. We need physical controls for climate. Everything else, I think you get used to. The ergonomics could use some improvement in this cabin. It's just not an intuitive space. It's not an intuitive vehicle to use. It's a challenge. It's comfortable. Once you get up to higher speeds, the suspension softens up and the ride improves quite a bit. Pulls nicely on the highway too. Little bit of wind noise. And look at this. We're almost eye level with a Bronco Sport. You're sitting up pretty high in this. So, as you guys may have noticed, bit of a mixed bag on first impressions in the new BMW 530i. There are some things that BMW is doing in their new cars that are controversial. That's nothing new. Big surprise there, right? I don't know. I'm so back and forth on the tech integration in these cars. I think you'd get used to it over time, but gosh, it's a learning curve, and I think initially, to the uninitiated, it's a safety concern. It's a safety hazard. I don't feel comfortable driving this car and operating things like climate control or heated seats or making adjustments and changes in the infotainment because it's so difficult and tedious to do. Especially without the safety net of adaptive cruise control, steering assist. You're on your own. Brake pedal is a little bit touchy. Throttle tuning is nice and linear though. Let's walk you around this one more time, and then we'll do a sound system test with this Bowers and Wilkins. I like that you can just press the engine stop button and it puts it into park, and that's it. That's all you need to do. Car's off. You can also just walk away and it will lock. This does have remote start, just a triple press. CarPlay connects quickly. Volume right down here. taste of what the Bowers and Wilkins sounds like. It seems like a bit of an improvement over some previous Bowers and Wilkins systems from BMW. It's still not amazing. I'm not blown away by it, but it gets the job done. It works. Honestly, I think if you're looking at a new BMW 5 Series and you can make the i5 work with your driving habits, your lifestyle, maybe you have a second car that is an internal combustion engine car, you should go for the i5 over the 530 because the EV really does drive awesome. It's one of the best driving EVs I've ever been behind the wheel of. It's fun, it's exciting, it's powerful, it's quiet, it's comfortable, it's luxurious, it feels ultra modern. It's a product from BMW that I actually am pretty excited about. They've done a really good job executing it. It's just that this feels like it was developed to be an EV. The whole platform, the new chassis, the way it looks, the tech, and it just doesn't feel like this 4-cylinder belongs in here. I'll probably feel differently about the B58 inline 6, and we'll see how the M5 goes. But I really do think BMW needs to bring back physical controls for climate and just kind of figure out some of the ergonomics in their interiors. Their stop-start engaging. Seamless. So fast. All right, well, that's going to wrap up this review for now. I'm sure if you've owned a BMW 530i for a couple weeks, you'll be comfortable with everything. It's just, on initial impressions, which is what this video is all about, it's a frustrating car to operate and I would say borderline dangerous to use without the driving assistance tech standard. So, there we go. Final thoughts later this week. Stay tuned for that. Might even do that with Substitute Topher, get some of his opinions on this too. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.